It was January 1959 when Igor Dyatlov and his group of 9 hikers embarked on a journey across the vast and treacherous Ural Mountains in Soviet Russia. The group, made up of experienced skiers and students from the Ural Polytechnical Institute, were all eager adventurers. The group's goal was to reach Mount Otorten, a peak deep within the Ural Range, and to complete a skiing expedition for their university. But their journey would end in a mysterious and chilling tragedy. Led by Dyatlov, a 23-year-old radio engineering student, the group consisted of 8 men and 2 women, all between the ages of 20 and 24. Each one was skilled in hiking, skiing, and navigating the challenging terrain of the region. The members of the expedition were Igor Dyatlov, 23, the leader; Yuri Doroshenko, 21; Georgy Krivonyshenko, 23; Alexander Zolotaryov, 37, the oldest member; Rustam Slobodin, 23; Nikolai Thibault-Brignoles, 23; Semyon Zolotaryov, 23; Ludmila Djubanina, 20; Yuri Yudin, 21, the only survivor. The group was fully equipped for the journey, and their plan was to trek for 16 days, finishing their expedition by reaching the top of Mount Otorten. They had made a detailed route, taking all precautions for the cold temperatures, which could dip as low as -30 degrees Celsius, -22 degrees Fahrenheit. They were well prepared for the harsh conditions that would be waiting for them. But things didn't go as planned. On February 1st, 1959, the group reached a location known as Dyatlov Pass. They had already covered significant distance, and their goal was to camp on the slopes of Otorten. But as night fell, something went terribly wrong. Instead of setting up camp as planned, the group made a decision to move further up the slope, likely to avoid the strong winds at the lower part of the mountain. This would be their final camp. At some point during the night, something caused them to panic. When the hikers failed to return on schedule, a search party was launched on February 20th. They found the hikers' abandoned tent at the foot of the mountain. But what they discovered was baffling. The tent had been slashed open from the inside, with a sharp instrument. It wasn't a simple mistake. They had cut their way out of the tent, as if they were trying to escape quickly. And not just 1 or 2 of them. Every member of the group had cut their way out, leaving their belongings, shoes, and other personal items behind. The sight of the tent told a story of utter confusion and fear. Their shoes were left behind, and the group had fled barefoot into the cold, deep snow. In some places, the snow was as deep as 4 meters, 13 feet, making it clear they had not ventured far. It didn't take long for the search team to find the first bodies. The first to be discovered was Yuri Doroshenko, lying some distance from the tent. His body showed signs of severe hypothermia. But that was not the most perplexing part. As they continued to search, the details became even stranger. The bodies of other members of the group began to appear one by one. The bodies were found in various states of distress. Some were dressed in torn clothing, some of which appeared to have been hastily put on, while others were completely undressed, a sign of their desperation in the freezing cold. But it was the injuries that were found on the bodies that truly baffled investigators. Doroshenko had his hands severely burnt, possibly from a fire. But the most disturbing part was that his tongue had been removed, and his eyes had been gouged out. His body showed no signs of external wounds, except for the injuries to his hands. Zolotaryov was found with his head severely crushed, and part of his skull was missing. The same injuries were discovered in some of the other hikers. It seemed like their skulls had been crushed with incredible force, yet there was no sign of a weapon or any violent interaction. Djubanina's body was found with broken ribs, and it looked as though she had been injured internally. But her injuries were too severe to be the result of a fall. In fact, the internal injuries suggested something much more powerful. A few of the bodies also showed signs of burns, even though there was no fire at the scene. This led to further speculation about some kind of unknown force causing the injuries. As the search continued, there were even stranger discoveries. Some of the hikers had signs of radiation on their clothing, suggesting that they had been exposed to radioactive material. How could this be? There was no explanation for why their clothes would have been contaminated by radiation, and no other hikers in the area had shown the same signs. Many theories began to emerge, though none provided a satisfactory explanation. Some speculated that the hikers had encountered a wild animal. However, The lack of external wounds on their bodies seemed to rule out this possibility. Others believed that the hikers had been attacked by local indigenous people, the Munsee. But the Munsee had no history of violence toward outsiders, and no evidence of an attack was found. Then came the most chilling theory, that the hikers had been the victims of a military experiment gone wrong. The Soviet government had conducted secret military operations in the area, and some believed that the hikers had been exposed to some sort of weapon, causing them to panic and flee into the cold. This theory was further fueled by the discovery of the hikers' clothing being contaminated by radiation. However, the Soviet government closed the investigation quickly and offered no clear explanation for what had happened. The official cause of death was listed as a compelling force, but that explanation raised more questions than it answered. As the years passed, the Dyatlov Pass incident remained a mystery, one that still haunts those who study it. Investigators have since re-examined the evidence, and new theories have been suggested over time, but none have been conclusive. Some experts believe the hikers may have fallen victim to an avalanche. The idea is that the avalanche disoriented them, forcing them to cut their way out of the tent in panic. However, no signs of an avalanche were found at the scene. Others suggest that the hikers experienced a phenomenon called infrasound, a type of sound wave that can cause feelings of fear, anxiety, and disorientation. Some claim that the hikers may have been driven mad by this sound, causing them to flee in a state of terror. Yet again, no concrete evidence of this has been found. Despite multiple investigations, the Dyatlov Pass incident remains one of the most perplexing mysteries in history. Why did the hikers abandon their tent in such a hurry? What caused their strange injuries? And why did they leave behind all their personal belongings, even in the face of certain death? The truth remains elusive. The Dyatlov Pass incident is a tragedy, a haunting story of a group of adventurers who set out for a journey and ended up facing an unknown force that, to this day, no one fully understands. Theories continue to emerge, and the mystery still lingers in the cold Ural Mountains. But whatever happened on that night in 1959, the mystery of Dyatlov Pass has captured the imagination of the world and remains unsolved to this very day.